this meeting is going to be broadcast live. If any of you don't wish to appear in full Technicolor glory, then you can switch your cameras off and also mute yourself if you wish. All right.
Hang on, before you go any further, where is it going live to?
It's live on YouTube.
Yeah, okay, well, I will mute that then. For reasons I will.
No, that's fine, Peter. No problem.
Just looking to see where I mute it.
Bottom left-hand corner.
Oh, I've got it, yeah.
And if you wish to switch your camera off.
I think you need to switch your video off, Peter.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine, Peter. And if you wish to speak, Peter, you can speak just anonymously without the pictures on the screen. Could I just ask, just to pop around, could I ask Helen, could you mute yourself, please?
Yes.
And I think everybody else is muted. That's all right. So that members of the committee are in Technicolor and they can speak if they wish. So members of the committee, if you don't need to mute if you don't want to. It's just to try and keep good order. Right. So anyway, welcome to the Transport Strategy meeting on Monday the 24th at 6 p.m. Apologies, we're a little late going. I'm just going to deal with administrative stuff first. Firstly, Fiona, do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, we received apologies from Councillor Darryl Poulos.
Right. Okay. And that's it for the moment. And we are going to be discussing the HGV ban, and it's whether any members of the committee, so only refers to the committee, have any declarations of interest on that item. I suspect not, because we all have an interest in it going forward. And finally, we have our last set of minutes, which I will propose that we accept. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arlott, thank you, Ken. And could I just, any comments? I think they were fairly straightforward. So can I just have a sign that you agree to accept the minutes? Okay, that is accepted. Okay, thanks very much. Now, on the agenda, it says public participation session now. I'm going to, I don't actually need to call for a vote or anything on this, but I'm going to change the order because I've obviously got some information that I wish to give out, which will inform the debate and the discussion, or may inform the debate and the discussion. So I'm going to actually say I'm going to speak for about 5 minutes or so on information, and then I will ask for any questions first, any questions, not statements, but any questions of clarification that people want to ask. And firstly, I'll go to the committee, and then I will go to the members of the public. And then after questions and clarifications, which I will do my best to say, then if anybody wishes to make any statements, then that is fine. And it will be, it won't be a time limited public participation session. It will be as long as it takes, well, within reason, let's put it like that, as long as it takes for anybody to say briefly whatever view you have. So therefore it will be a free and open and transparent thing. So that's what I'm proposing to do. So I'm just going to start for about, I apologize, for about 5 minutes. If I drone on for too long, Kath, Fiona and Kester and Ken will tell me to shut up. I've gone on too long. So, right. let me explain where we're at the moment. Last April, there was a resolution passed at OCC, which actually said that council officers, Oxfordshire County Council officers, should do all the necessary studies to that are required for a traffic regulation order for a weight limit for Henley to come into force. Since April, we've had Fiona, I, and Kath have had 2 or 3 meetings with OCC officers, and it looked as though it was progressing very well, because in November it was agreed that the next step in the process was to actually create a map around Henley and identify locations on the map for ANPR cameras, automatic number plate recognition cameras, to be placed, so that we could get an idea of the number of HGVs and the type of HGVs coming into Henley. And that would have been a very straightforward process. Having got that map, I would then have had to go to Henley Town Council to say, right, here is the map, this is the progress, it's going to cost you Z, and then it would be up to Henley Town Council, as it always will be, to actually authorise the funding of that particular study. And it's a standard study that before you can implement a traffic regulation order for a weight limit, you have to know what the base data is. And you also have to find out what the effect on other communities are. There was concern expressed in the meeting with OCC that Marlow had a weight limit, so we would have to take into account that. And Caversham also has Marlow has an air quality management area, and Caversham has an air quality management area. So we would have to take into account that if we displaced heavy goods vehicles from Henley, that they weren't going to impact on the air quality of those other places. So it was a fairly broad and wide-ranging study and data collection exercise. The map and the ANPR camera positions I was due to receive in November, and that's why we were going to have the meeting in December. I was assured by OCC that the information was coming, and that, so therefore I postponed the meeting in December, as you know, because there's no point in having a meeting without the information. And I set up this meeting, which was specifically a one-item agenda to do with HGVs. And I was fully expecting that, in fact, the OCC officers would get me the data, etc., and get me the report so that we could have a full discussion going forward. Fiona is, as the officer responsible for this committee, and we are aware of an email that was sent which said, unfortunately, I'm unable to get any work to you by close of play today. Sorry. New cogs have started moving, i.e. Councillor Enright's decision to revoke the ETRO in Burford, paired with the motion to consider an area-wide weight restrictions in Oxfordshire. It goes on to say internal discussions are taking place, and due to these discussions, I'm afraid I will not be able to provide a coherent report considering a weight limit for Henley on Thames, which is aligned to the county's freight policy. I sincerely apologise for this abrupt delay, having already postponed until the new year the collection of the data. As soon as the council are collectively clearer about the direction of travel for the freight strategy, we will update you further. So that was an email saying you're not going to get your report at the moment. Now, So there's that, full stop. Let me move on to the next bit, which is to do with Burford. Burford, for a long time, for 20 years, have been campaigning for a 7.5 ton weight limit in Burford. And a year and a half ago, they established what was called an ETRO. In other words, an experimental traffic regulation order. In other words, it was a temporary traffic regulation order for a year that was extended for a year and a half. In other words, Burford were allowed, at a cost of £140,000, I'll say that again, Burford were allowed at a cost of £140,000 to implement an experimental traffic regulation order to evaluate the effects of traffic going through the town and in the surrounding area. That was extended for another 6 months for further information and studies. 2 weeks ago, that decision was rescinded. In other words, at a cabinet meeting at county, the cabinet portfolio holder, who's called Councillor Duncan Enright, scrapped the Burford scheme. Therefore, it no longer exists. And in fact, in the middle of February, it was ceased to exist. Now, that's not the end of the road on the Burford thing. I'm sorry, this is slightly long and complicated. I'm trying to make it as clear as possible. It's not the end of the road, because on the 2nd of February, any cabinet holders' decisions can be called in for scrutiny. So on the 2nd of February, there's a scrutiny meeting at which any members of the public can register. I've already registered as county councillor to speak, with a view to that decision being put on hold for a decision of the whole cabinet of Oxfordshire County Council. So at the moment, the Burford decision has been scrapped on the say-so of one person, who is the cabinet portfolio holder for roads. Now, if we succeed at scrutiny in getting that decision overturned or referred, then the whole cabinet of Oxfordshire County Council will have to make the decision as to whether they scrap the scheme or allow it to carry on, etc., etc., etc. Now, what we're trying to do, and I'm in conversation with Councillor Nick Field Johnson, who's the Burford member, is to basically try and get that Burford decision overturned, so that in fact the weight limit for Burford stands. So that's the first bit. I will turn up to scrutiny, I will speak, I will turn up to cabinet meeting, I will speak, and I will be as forceful as I possibly can in actually getting it to stand. The second bit is this wider freight strategy. The county have announced that they want to look at the county as a whole, holistically, and that they won't make any decisions on individual towns until that happens. Well, as you can imagine, I have immediately written to the officers and also to Councillor Duncan Enright, and I've said, well, Henley's got a resolution that says you should do everything you can to carry out the studies. The second thing is, why are you stopping the ANPR data study, which is the next step? Because you will need that to come up with a freight strategy for the whole county. And in fact, you will have to do ANPR studies for every town in Oxfordshire, including Henley. You'll have to do one for Abingdon. You'll have to do one for Burford. You'll have to do one for Witney. You'll have to do one for whatever. Because if you're going to come up with a comprehensive freight strategy, then you've got to spend an awful lot of money actually doing the baseline data for all of that. Or the freight strategy is completely and utterly meaningless. So I have written a letter to an email to the officers and to Duncan, and I've put the following questions. One, why has Henley been put on hold? Secondly, when is the freight strategy study going to start, and when is it going to end, and what is its scope? Because there's been no detail about the freight strategy. Specifically to do with Henley, when the new strategy takes into account, will the new strategy take into account air quality, pedestrian safety, historic buildings, and the quality of life issues? The fourth point I made was that all political groups on the county have stated in their manifesto that active travel is the buzzword. In other words, we want people to walk to places, we want people to cycle to places. So therefore, how can that be compatible with actually thundering great big juggernauts going through towns? There's got to be some restrictions on it. So I'm trying to get from Duncan Enright the scope of this freight strategy. And I made the final point: in order to have a comprehensive freight strategy, there must be a whole raft of base data collected. Presumably this means ANPR studies in all major towns in Oxfordshire. Therefore, on this point alone, Henley should be allowed to continue with our studies, because our studies prove and will prove that we have a problem in Henley that should be tackled. I said, after you reply to these points, I am sure there will be a lot more questions to be answered. And my final comment was, understandably, I am very irritated by this turn of events. And I attached the Halcrow freight map, which clearly says and shows that Henley should not be used as a route. So I'm almost at the end now, but the reason why county are saying that Henley is being put on hold is because of an evaluation has to happen to do with the Burford decision. And secondly, that because we've got this freight strategy coming for the whole of Oxfordshire, then nothing can happen until more stuff happens on that. And they haven't defined any parameters of this whole county freight strategy. And there are loads of questions to be asked, of which I said in my email. If you're going to have a whole county freight strategy, you've got to analyse every town in terms of pedestrian safety, in terms of air quality, in terms of vibration on buildings, in terms of etc., etc., etc. And there's no paperwork on this at all. So that, in summary, is where we're at the moment. Of course, as soon as I get any information back from Jason Sherwood, who is the chief officer, and Duncan Enright, who is the cabinet portfolio holder, as soon as I get any information that, I will put it out to the committee, and also any members of the public. I know most of your email addresses, apart from probably Pauline, I don't. So if you could email me and let me know, but I will make sure that a full and comprehensive report comes back to all of you. And I would guess probably in about 3 weeks' time, we will have another meeting as an update meeting going forward. In conclusion, it does not mean that Henley Town Council, it does not mean that I have gone cold on a traffic regulation order for heavy goods vehicles. There is a clear and absolute need for one, and we must continue to press on and on and on to actually get it. One final thing, Amanda, apologies. You sent me an email just before the meeting, and there is one, and I thank you for copying me in on that. I won't refer to the whole email, but there is a highlighted passage which Amanda will probably refer to, which the officer says, accordingly, before any new weight restrictions can be considered, monitoring and mapping work must first be undertaken to ensure that suitable alternative routes are available for impacted vehicles. Well, that is exactly what we're wanting to do on the next stage. So in fact, we have an officer who's actually saying what we want. So I will let you, I will basically let you know. Now, what I will do now is I will stop. You'll be pleased to know. I will, can I take questions, any questions from the committee, and then any questions, not statements, just any questions of clarification from members of the public? Can I go to the committee first? Anybody want to ask any questions? Dave McEwen. You're muted. Still muted.
Okay.
Yeah, we're there. Thanks,
Right.
Dave.
Okay. Apologies. Can I just ask about the status of what I've always known as the strategic road network, which provides us with a box around South Oxfordshire, which is the M40, the M4, the A34, and the Marlow bypass. Is that 404?
Yep.
Is that still valid and talked about? Because we've got the box there, that's where we intend to place things to. So the alternative already exists.
Absolutely. The answer is yes. The strategic highway network exists, and HGVs are advised to go on it. But because it's a public highway and they pay their license fee or their road haulage license fee, they can ignore that and come through Henley, unless you have a law, a traffic regulation order that says if you're 7.5 ton and above or 18 ton and above, then you can still go through and there's nothing we can do about it. So the answer is it is absolutely relevant. We have got the box that they should be going on. And we have evidence that most of the lorries are coming from Maidenhead to Didcot. Well, the best route from Maidenhead to Didcot is M4 and then A34 up to Didcot, and not through Henley. So yeah, that was that. Any other questions, David, Dickey, and then Patrick?
Yes, adding on to that framework, I was very interested to read about a proposal for a new road from Didcot across to the Henley-Oxford Road, just north of Wallingford, going right across the Thames and flooded areas. It seems to be, it's been costed at £200 million. And the reasons for this are, one, housing expansion in Didcot. And the second thing is commercial expansion in both Didcot and Wallingford. Now, if you think of yourself coming across from Didcot, across that road and hitting the Henley to Oxford Road, you're not going to be able to get to the M40, which is what they've sort of put in brackets. It may be very useful for that. So although they haven't got a framework and a strategy, they're proposing to build a new road to help with commercial and HGVs. Yeah. And I think they could only feed Henley, because we did know before that Didcot, Wallingford, Henley was causing us an increase, because I went out and observed that. Now, I think this could make it far worse. But there's nowhere in objecting to that one which says Henley's being considered.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So that's my first point.
Yeah.
I have 4.
No, well, I'll just deal with that. Yes, it's called the HIF1 and the HIF2 bid, which is called Housing Infrastructure Funding.
Yeah.
And because South Oxfordshire have taken, inverted commas, lots of houses, they get government money for infrastructure, and that infrastructure is for a new Thames bridge at Didcot with roads attached. And I can agree with you, David, that in fact, the when that is complete, then the potential for even more lorries coming through Henley is greater. Yes. You said you had 3 other points.
Yeah, the other thing,
Yep.
yeah, I'll go through the others quick. I think that's most important. First of all, on air quality, the results show that post-COVID, everything's rising. Not only is crew clothing over the limit, but Savills Corner is going over the limit. So I have 2 proposals, but most importantly, I think we also ask SODC whether an extension of the AQMA is possible down into that end of town, because I think then they'd have to consider it a bit more.
Yeah.
The other one,
just on that particular point, I'm sorry to be butting in quite a bit, but I sort of hold quite a bit of information. As you know, David, of course, in our latest studies, we were only a gnat's whisker away from the World Health Organization limits on particulates and NOx readings as well. So Henley is very close to what the World Health Organization are saying is bad air.
Yes, my point is more specific in terms of the AQMA should go down towards the northward end of town rather than be centered in this, just in the center. So because I think that would help with the HGV story. There is also the Oxford-wide thing, there is a consultation. And I see Amanda mentioned, I think we've got to get a lot of people in Henley, like they sign something, even if we have to give them some words to answer the consultation, because I think we need protection. Now, can you answer also, is New Street due for refurbishment very soon?
Yes.
Good. Okay, I don't need
time.
any more. I just wanted a yes. Could we install bollards on the Savills and Asquith's corner as they do that to allow pedestrians to cross the road safely?
It is my intention probably to do that before.
Okay,
So, yes.
Thank you. That's a good move. I think putting the bollards in will give them something harder to negotiate around in terms of discussion, not just by the lorries. Thank you.
Right.
That's what I have to say.
That has also been raised by, or already been raised.
Yes, I know.
By OCC officers. Right. Yep. Sorry, Patrick.
Was this decision made without any explanation whatsoever, or has there been some form of explanation given to Oxfordshire County councillors or to anyone else?
Sorry,
the decision to revoke
Burford decision.
Burford.
Yes, the answer is yes. There was the meeting, which there was lots of representation from Burford and other villages around, and then Councillor Duncan Enright read out a prepared statement, which we can get a hold of a copy of. I haven't got one here to show anybody, but yes, the answer is he allegedly, he gave supposed reasons for its revocation. So we can get a hold of that, and
that'd be very helpful.
I'll share it with the whole committee.
Thank you.
There are 2 flaws in it, which we are pursuing with Burford. Firstly, there was a whole lot of automatic number plate recognition data that was not included in the decision and not included in the officer's report. So that's the first point. How on earth can you make a decision when all the data hasn't been considered? And the second, which is slightly more controversial, but I'll say it, is that Councillor Duncan Enright represents Witney, which is very close to Burford. And there was considerable representation from Burford, from Witney and surrounding villages in his patch. And it is our opinion that he should have not made the decision, because he had well, I'll just say it bluntly, he had a vested interest in his own patch, and the decision should not have been made by him, but should have been. What happens in those circumstances, if a cabinet holder thinks that their decision might be compromised in any way, then the leader of the council, Liz Leffman, actually steps in as the official arbiter. So those are the two reasons. Those are the two reasons we're going to be making at the scrutiny committee. Okay, Patrick, any others?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So anybody else on the committee? Okay, right, members of the public, if you just unmute yourself, if you wish to make a comment, bear in mind that we're dealing with questions at the moment, not statements.
Stefan Stirl, quick one.
Stirl, okay,
So,
carry on.
You mentioned the Halcro map.
Yep.
For those who are not really aware of it, 2005, part of the Oxfordshire Freight Quality Partnership.
Yep.
When I inquired about that, how it was put together, what information and what strategy it fitted it in, I was in fact referred to an updated map, which is part of a document LTP4, Oxfordshire Freight Strategy Connecting Oxfordshire 2015 to 2031, which has a strategic statements in there and a number of initiatives that they wanted to pursue. Are you aware of that particular document?
Yes, I am. It's part of the consultation for the LTP4 consultation. So yes, the answer is yes, I am. But that is not an official document at the moment because it's in the consultation process. So the answer is yes, we can comment on that map if we wish.
I didn't know if everyone else on the Zoom was aware of it, that was all.
Probably you, Amanda, and others may be, but no, I wouldn't think members of the committee are. It is certainly a map that is important, and it goes back to David Dickey's point that we should get members of the public involved in actually lobbying and filling in this consultation from a Henley point of view. Yeah, that will include the map. Yep.
Yep. No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody? Pauline, go for it.
Hi, Stefan. By the way, I've just given my email address to Kath.
Thank you.
Who is leading this overall freight strategy for Oxfordshire? Both members and officers. Who's involved and where did it come from? Sorry, I'm a little late to the party.
No.
A little bit more context and history would be helpful.
No, Pauline, the whole point is I will try and answer your questions as best I possibly can. Well, ultimately, it's the Cabinet of Oxfordshire, but Councillor Duncan Enright is the Cabinet. They are called portfolio holders.
Sorry, Steph, you don't have to explain how a local authority works.
Okay.
I work for a minor authority in Buckinghamshire, so that's fine. Thank you.
Brilliant. So the answer is Councillor Duncan Enright is the lead politician, if you like, for the council, and Jason Sherwood is the chief officer. There are others, but Jason Sherwood is the chief officer. There are others below him, etc., but he's the chief officer. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Stefan, it's Amanda.
Amanda, go for it.
Just in terms of summarising for Pauline, it would, and also the Halcro background, they did acknowledge that Henley needed protection along with Burford and with Chipping Norton, and that is enshrined in the current extant local authority connecting Oxfordshire local transport map. Now, this new initiative, which is LTCP5, which was launched on the 5th of January, is doing a complete volte-face on what they had given us by way of assurance and Stefan's motion, which was passed in April last year. So they've been working with us, and then prior to Christmas, we had Mr. Bulmer's resolution suddenly introducing this county-wide HGV consideration. Then we had the revocation of Burford, and now we've effectively had the revocation of Stefan's resolution in terms of not proceeding with the studies which had been promised. I think everybody in Henley needs to take a long, hard, cold look at what they've launched, which is LTCP5. It raises a number of disturbing points, not least that A, we're not going to be able to proceed with the weight limit studies, but B, also, it seems to say that even if we need a weight limit, we can't have one unless there is a suitable, comparable alternative route. Bottom line is that HGVs come to Henley purely to cross the river because it's a quick connection between junctions 8 and 9 up to Didcot. Our problems have been exacerbated by the construction of the distribution centres up at Didcot and to a lesser extent Wallingford. This new road is also going to further exacerbate the problem. We can't cope with 44 tonners all over our pavements. It's as simple as that. And the Department of Transport is on the point of considering authorising 48 tonners, which will be 2 metres longer and 4 tonnes heavier. You know, some sense has to prevail. The campaign has been collating pictures from members of the public and sending them on to one Joe Kay, who's actually the mastermind behind launching LTCP5, so that they can actually see for their own eyes the photographic evidence of these things on the pavements. It's totally wrong that OCC should be able to turn a blind eye and say, well, they've got to go through Henley because it happens to suit us in terms of dealing with the volumes of traffic. That's what I wanted to say.
No,
Our danger,
I'm in complete agreement.
Is that if we don't mobilise public opinion and if we don't let OCC actually know, not just the campaign in its formal sense, but individuals in Henley, people who care about Henley, then not only is Henley not going to get its weight limit, it's also going to find it becomes an authorised HGV route.
Yep.
End of. Thank you.
Amanda, completely agree with all that you've said, and it ties in with David's earlier point about mobilising people. I will take it as an action point for me to create a coherent paper on the back of this meeting. I'll get it done in the next couple of days, where it points people to the consultation.
The problem that we've got as well is that we are trying, people have reported to us as the campaign that they've tried to log on using the formal links which OCC have advertised, and they are frustrated from doing so. A number of people have reported that they've got error messages coming back to them. Now that is not helping people actually communicate on a democratic basis.
No, you're right. No, absolutely right. I will make sure the links work, and also with our communications that we've got with the Henley Standard and also the Henley Herald, we can actually, and the great work you did, Amanda, on the petition, which is 2,500 people now. We can get
it is. Yeah, we need to reawaken people's awareness of that. Yep. Obviously, it had been hanging in abeyance after your resolution was passed, because we were hoping that things were going to go according to plan.
Yeah.
This is Tony Fox speaking. May I say something?
Tony, yes, go for it.
Not strictly speaking a question, although it
no, it's fine. I think we'll wander off questions, and if people want to make statements, then they can. Okay, Tony, go for it.
Yeah, just following up with what Amanda was just saying, I I've actually been in touch with Joe Kay this afternoon because I tried to access this survey without success. And he went away and came back and said they didn't know there was any problem with it. The first report that they'd had, although I'd had emails from a few people saying they couldn't access it. So with that assurance, I went back into the website, and indeed I was able to access it. But the only way I was able to access it, it was by registering, putting in a username of my choice, my details, email, telephone, where I was a resident, etc., etc. Now this is hurdle one.
Yep.
Of course, I went through it, and then I entered the survey. Now I have spent the entire afternoon on that survey, and I would say that it's a complete and utter waste of time, unless you're prepared, as I was, to make statements in all the boxes where you're invited to make statements. Now, to what extent those will ever be read and taken note of, I don't know. But it's a typical online survey. Do you agree with this entirely? Do you agree with it a bit? Do you have no feelings either way? Do you know, the usual sort of stuff? And they're all no-brainers, really. I mean, it's just a self-justification exercise, in my opinion. And, you know, anybody with any feelings about this at all is, especially when they're asking questions about environmental issues, cycling, all that kind of thing, you're going to say, yes, I agree. But unless you're prepared to sit down, as I say, as I did, and it's taken me 4 hours, I've gone through every single bit of it, and I haven't read the entire document, which you would really need to do in order to answer the questions 100% truthfully, that you have studied the whole document, which is 174 pages long or something. Now, I don't think, you know, with the best will in the world, many people are going to actually fill out such a survey in any meaningful way. You know, they might tick a few boxes. Of course, as I say, they're no-brainers. You're not going to say, well, I don't agree with the creation of, you know, safer environments. And there's a lot of jargon in it as well, which I think is going to put, you know, most people off. A lot of business speak type stuff. I mean, you know, I've read a lot of environmental documents, as you know, and some of the terminology that's in there just doesn't, you know, they're complete inventions, really. And anyway, all I'm going to say is I don't know to what extent people are going to actually be able to, even with the best will in the world, fill out a survey in this way and apply any pressure at all to the county council.
And of course, the conclusion of a survey of this type is they come out with a blunt statement that 5,000 people have filled it in and 99% are happy with it.
Well, yes, that's right. It's going to be a completely statistical analysis.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to not tick a box saying, do you want to improve the environment? Do you want to improve air quality? Do you agree with our policy on this? I mean, most of those policies, if you had all the money in the world and all the freedoms in the world to build new roads, and could not be achieved. It's just ludicrous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
it's the apple pie survey, isn't it? Do you like apple pie? Yes. Do you want it with cinnamon? Well, yes. Do you want it with custard? Well, yes. Or, well, if you don't want it with custard, you can have it with ice cream, etc. So the only thing I can try and do, Tony, is when I create this document to mobilize opinion, is to try and point them to the bits we want them to put comments on. But Tony, I'll probably liaise with you and come up with some words on this. Yeah. Okay. Fiona.
Thank you, Stefan. Just to chip in, I just wanted to say I completely sympathise with Tony Fox's frustration with surveys of this kind, but I would also feel confident that Stefan and I could come up with a way of helping people find the bits that are relevant for Henley and ways to get through quickly to the bit that is relevant to us. rather than wading through the vacuous questions that aren't really adding.
Oh yes, I've completely ignored the things about, you know, data and those kind of things, and concentrated on all the issues that relate to heavy goods vehicles.
Yep.
And I suppose I did 30% of the actual issues. If I decided to do 100%, you know, it would have taken me 10 hours probably.
Yep. Well, thank you, Tony, for your dedication. Anybody else?
Can I, Stefan, it's Helen.
Helen, yes, go for
Can
it.
I just say to Fiona about the consultations, the surveys, just to be careful, because I think it's really easy for people to get confused, because there are really two running concurrently. There's the local transport consultation plan, the LTCP, which I think ends 22nd of February. And then there is this bigger freight and logistics strategy, the document that relates to, you know, up to 2035 or whatever it is. And the way I've read Joe Kay's responses to Amanda's questions was that this first survey is vitally important, the local transport consultation plan, because that is the immediate thing that they're going to be working on, whereas this bigger strategy thing is for the future. I'm happy to be corrected by anybody if I've misread that, but we mustn't slip up on an easy one or on something like that, where if we're trying to encourage people to go for this humongous document that Tony was just describing, trying to complete, when actually they really should be focusing on the one that's going to end very soon, in, you know, like the end of Feb, if that's going to be more important to us and help us get these immediate results through. I hope you all sort of understand that. And if you want me to send any sort of separate links after the meeting just to explain what I'm saying, I'm happy to do that. And I have also been led to believe, having made inquiries of Joe Kay for some of the sort of elderly people that I try and look after with manual copies of surveys, people who can't do the online stuff, they were keen to explain to me that people do only need to complete the very bit that they're interested in. There is no need to trawl through the whole survey answering every question, which is great. You know, we can just focus on the freight bits and the bits that we need.
I mean, Fiona and I will, Helen, thank you for those comments, and certainly send to me any relevant links that you think I need to do, and rest assured, Fiona and I will shortly get together and create a document that points to what we think are the most important bits of the survey. And I think you're probably right, it's the freight and logistics strategy survey that we're really interested in. Okay. Patrick?
Yeah, thank you, Helen. Can we be sure that this move by Enright, it relates to the existing LTPC 5, or is it actually is he kicking the whole thing into the long grass? And is it really relating to the overall freight strategy? Could we be here for another 5 years? You know, whilst they work on that one. Do we, you know, I don't know if you know that, Helen.
Mute. I think what we need to do is perhaps share the responses that we've had. Literally, that some responses came in today from Amanda's emails that she sent a while ago, which was kind of helpful, but also needs to be digested. And I think that they answer your question. It's what it highlights is the process that everything has to go through, which Stefan actually summarized very accurately when he opened the meeting. And nothing has changed from that. We've got to stick with it as if it can be done. What's sort of thrown a bomb into it and has made us all very nervous is the point he made about the Burford thing and them not considering the APNR camera data, which is all part of the official process. You know,
Yeah.
so they're saying one thing about process and then they're not using it. So obviously we're therefore saying, so where does that leave us?
Patrick, in direct answer to your question regarding Councillor Duncan Enright, is that the answer is I don't know. I don't know whether it's. I mean, he assures us in press statements it's going to be a quick process, but I haven't got an email from him that says this is going to be a quick process and we're going to come out with a freight strategy by May of this year, to be discussed in July. So therefore it could well be a long grass, it could well be an open-ended thingy, and the answer is we don't know at the moment. But I have emailed and asked, and I will continue to press, and in fact I will press verbally as well in questions to any committees that I feel are relevant. Yeah.
Thank you.
Folks, we're 5 minutes away from 7, and I rest assured I will get paperwork out to you that I hope is clear and cogent, and Fiona and I will work on that. But we know where we're going. We're trying to get clarification. We're still trying absolutely to get a weight limit for Henley. Yes, the point about bollards helps in terms of certainly on the Savills corner. We've got to provide safety for that particular corner because it is very, very dangerous. So there are small measures, but there are also this bigger picture. And as soon as I know any information, I will share it with you, and also set up another meeting in the near term, not the long term, in the near term. I would think it'd probably be in about 3 weeks' time where we will have more clarification. But that'll be subject to Fiona correcting me. So, are there any other statements or questions or comments that people want to ask? So please do.
No.
I hear silence. So, right. Well, then in conclusion, we have definitely got to come up with a plan that actually bolsters the Burford bid and bolsters the Henley bid. And in fact, I can't say I'm hopeful or optimistic. All I can say is, in the email that Amanda got this morning, it does actually say, if you want to implement a freight strategy, you've got to have the baseline data. You've got to have the ANPR data. So that is exactly the position we want for Henley, because we can't implement a weight limit ban unless that data exists. So therefore, I will be pressing for the studies to carry on as per Henley. So I'm going to finish the meeting, and I will get paperwork to you, members of the public and members of the committee, and I will keep you informed, and I will set up another meeting very shortly. But thank you for attending, and Fiona, if you can stop the